to track it. We got 4 phone calls. First 2 were women yelling at us when hearing their husbands in the background laugh. And the next 2 were the husbands loving it and complimenting us with their wives yelling at us and cussing at us from the back of the phone. So
when the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind that speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.
Hey, welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson, with more than 2 decades in sales. I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing those stories to you, my favorite people in the world, because this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can create an amazing life in sales. And today's guest is no stranger to that journey. I'd like to welcome Josh Ramsey to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm great. Good to be here.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. And I want to jump right in, man. I want to hear your crazy sales story.
Yeah, so this one's going to take a little bit of a weave of a story, but it kind of starts, I'm going to go forward and then I'm going to go back to get back forward again. So I had a company out of Portugal that does extremely high-end windows. I mean, one window fixed unit was $325,000. So it was no small little piece. And they were really going after the, 1%ers of the world to sell these windows to them. So they wanted to figure out a way to impact the market that they wanted to hit. They knew they wanted to hit architects and certain builders, and they wanted to get their name in front of them in the U.S. market. So I told them a story that happened a couple of years before that, about 2 or 3 years before. And what we did is I was working with a pest control group. You probably know the company Dow Chemical and Centricon brand. And with this marketing approach that I took, long story short is we ended up taking steps to educate consumers on who we were as a company. Then we got to our big hook, and our big hook was a box that we mailed. And the first box that we sent had a 6-inch rat and a 6-inch cockroach with our logo painted on it. So we knew with our marketing side that if we got people to get that box and know our name, that we would have some type of impact. And if we sold one deal, we covered our costs. Well, we immediately, when that box hit, we were able to track it. We got 4 phone calls. The first 2 were women yelling at us when hearing their husbands in the background laugh. And the next 2 were the husbands loving it and complimenting us with their wives yelling at us and cussing at us from the back of the phone. So it was a huge impact. So now I take us back to the window company. When I explained that to them, they didn't get the humor and the impact of if you're not disrupting the market, if you don't have something bold that's going to jump out and bite them in the face, that rat, that roach, then you don't get it. So I explained the story to them and they were like, I don't know how that's going to work. And they couldn't see beyond the gimmick, so to speak, the hook. So then I walked them through the second box that I did. In the second box, if everyone remembers back in the 2014, 2013 time, bed bugs were on the rise. So we took a plastic bag, a Ziploc, and we inserted a note that said, caution, live bed bugs do not open. And then we ripped part of the plastic bag off. So we got a huge impact, and it didn't work as well because people were a little more upset and laughing, but we still had the impact and we still made the sales we needed to make. So what I look at is what's going to disrupt the market? What is it that's going to stand out and above everyone else? That when we go back to get that lead in, even if they're upset, we got the phone call. Even if they're happy, we got the phone call. We now know that these people are interested at some level, that they took enough time to call us. And even if they were unhappy, they call us back. So what ended up happening with that, the glass company, the window company, is that we ended up sending out a book, a metal book, like a notebook, and we got no impact because that's where their CEO wanted to go. But where we got impact was we took one of the architecture tubes where you wrap blueprints and put them in. We sent this tube out wrapped, and we had a much higher impact. So it just goes to show up the higher the disruption, the higher volume of calls that you can get.
Yeah, I love the story because I'm a big fan of doing really outside the box things to get attention and create engagement. Because like you said, at some level, it's really just having a conversation is the main first goal in all of this. Create awareness, start a conversation. And so what I really appreciate and I like how you shared the one with the rats and the roaches that did get some level of response, and then the one with the bed bugs that objectively, I'm sure you guys thought it was genius and then went back and were like, we screwed this up. But where did we screw this up? Because it's not that it was completely wrong if it got got a response.
Yeah.
It just didn't elicit quite the right response. And
Right.
what I love about bringing the marketing conversation to the sales conversation on this show is the reminder of how important it truly is for all of you that are listening to separate yourself and to build your own brand and create that quirky kind of public awareness so that people get to know you. I mean, if you think about any famous athlete, they're all playing for a team, right? They're all most of them, not all of them, but the majority of major athletes play for teams. But we all love the individual, right? We love Kobe, we love Jordan, LeBron, or some of us were big Dennis Rodman fans, and he was one of the weirdest dudes out there. But you can embrace that outside the box perspective, and you can create a really interesting conversation. And so what I liked also about what you said and what I want to touch on deeper with you is understanding your core audience and your client's core audience so that you can create an effective message. Can you go deeper on that? Because like you said, the first time you told it to them, it sounded like they didn't understand the perspective. So I want to unwrap that a little bit.
Yeah, so obviously some of these things, if your audience is going to understand, right? The pain point. What is the pain point? But where I like to focus and work with sales teams is identifying the pain point and trying to touch it as hard as possible, disrupting it, so that way when you follow up. Now, here's some pieces of that story that I need to share. We had 7 touch points before we sent the box. That impact drove our targeted list that we had named of 125 down to 63. We ended up selling 12 units. 12 people bought from the list of 125. And again, our ROI was only looking for 1. So the sales team was a person of 1 selling 12, killing and crushing his marketing goal. But he called after every single touch point to be able to hit that mark of 12. So it just overproduced. The other part that you don't know is that the bed bug part, we ended up selling 4, which we only needed to sell 0.5 based on the price per sale, cost per lead, and all the other metrics. We also ran a third campaign that the CEO of that company wanted to run, and we put a jump drive. In 2014, we put a jump drive in a box, and 0 people called us. No one would pick up the phone and call us back. It flopped miserably. With the window company, the numbers are not normal, right? When I tell you that it's $325,000 for 1 unit, it's not realistic because we never sell 1 unit. Our average job price point was around $15 million. So all we were looking for was the brand and then the brand. So this is where the attribution isn't tracked specifically. Your attribution source is going to be tracked as a whole. Did our market rise? Are we running more, bids? And depending on, the structure of what you're looking at, we looked at it as bids, is what we called it internally. So if we wrote more bids out, then we knew that the program worked. Did we have those conversations? That was our KPI, was did we have conversations? And from those conversations, did some of them turn to bids? Were we able to do the blueprints for them? So There's more impact in looking at the numbers, which I think sales guys, because I've been a sales guy for many years, I sold, transit advertising, billboards. I've done it all, traditional media, all the way through, even today I work with clients, obviously selling clients on the services of marketing, right? So I get that, but I look heavily at the KPIs. What are we trying to achieve? What is that benchmark, and what are we trying to drive our costs down to to make sure that it's effective. I'm going to throw one more thing, and I want to kick it over to you. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this. But I find that a lot of salespeople love the marketing strategy of it, but they have a hard time getting ownership to buy into opening the door for them. They want the salespeople to open the door rather than having a good marketing campaign that's affordable to help open that door. And I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's okay. I love that you're asking this because I came from, when I got into original phone sales, I was an insurance producer. So I worked for an agent who was the owner. He also happened to be an in-law. So I kind of had, I don't want to say nepotism, but like he was spending a ton of money on leads. And because I was willing to show up and call them, like I got a lot of leads. And so I got really used to, working the internet leads and going through that process. However, what I also learned is that the internet leads were only so good. Once I started paying attention to the numbers, I could close, I want to say it's been a decade, but like maybe 36% of the internet leads that came in. And I was like a high-end closer on those because I would call relentlessly, right? 17 touch points and how many letters can I mail and what can I get in front of them and how many often times. And so what I also learned, though, over time is that it wasn't the highest ROI for my time, my energy, and my effort. And getting referrals from loan officers and real estate agents were significantly higher ROI, but it also required a completely different approach because I had to go and nurture those relationships and I had to bring something else of value to the table in terms of my approach was, hey, I'm going to go generate these leads because I was a sales guy that learned if I could just generate my own leads, I'd make more money. And I found that if I could get leads for these guys, they would send me the business.
So Drewbie, just to keep it going here, I want to dive into something and ask you a question as a consultant.
Yeah.
If you're looking at 100% of your sales and you're closing 36% of the total amount of leads that come in from the internet, that 30%, that 36%, let's just call it 5 sales that you made, right? Yep. I'm going to throw out a random number. So you're making 50 sales in a month and 5 of them come from that. That means if you didn't have that opportunity and you spent a certain amount of time, then you only hit a sale number of 45. And if your sales goal was 50, then that extra trickle of leads, high tide raises all ships. So I love what you're saying. I just feel like people lose that perspective because not all leads are created equal. I'm the first one to stand up and say that. But if that 36% that you close led to our number that I threw out there of 5 of your 50, then I do look at that and go, okay, yes, you have to run these leads and you have to run it. But this is the point of having multiple operations running in your sleep because they talk about billionaires and millionaires. And the way that I almost said I'm going to be careful of over speaking on this, but I do pretty damn well. And in what I do, I have learned that I make the most amount of money when I'm asleep. So my investments of my AI company, my oil, my gas, my real estate, all of this diversification draws in while I'm sleeping. So as salespeople, one of the things that I think that salespeople are missing out on is figuring out new hooks in the water to be fishing while they sleep, to have something going and using different AI sources to generate those leads while they sleep to then vet them. I just had a meeting with a business owner. He is getting 1 call a day, so 30 a month, and his average sale price is over 200K. That's like the minimum is 200K if he makes 1 sale. He's closing only 1 a month out of 30. His closing ratio is not very good, but he's dealing with watermelons versus apples. Yep. But the thing is that he needs to clear up his time. So using some AI tools in your sales process, call the damn leads. I love it, man. That's why when I saw their podcast, I was like, cool, man, I'd love to have the chat. Because I feel like sometimes calling the damn leads is qualifying them so and the cream rises to the top. Just my 2 cents.
No, you're 100% right. And where I can take that from the conversation is, for me, what I really ultimately learned in starting to track those metrics, kind of going back to what we were talking about, was that I couldn't stop doing the lead follow-up. All of that was still required. I had to be more intentional with my time every single day and focus on the areas that mattered most, because as a farmer and a hunter, that CRM that I was building, all those internet leads, even though they weren't closing maybe today, but over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months, I could, as you were saying, be making money in my sleep because I had a system that would then just reach out and be like, hey, we know you're going to be up for renewal in 45 days, which means your rates are most likely to go up in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We've already run the updated numbers and we know exactly where you would be with us for the next 6 months. Here, take a look at it so you can compare it against what they're going to send you when your renewal comes in. So I was already coming in the door hot, being like, hey, if I can save you money, you're going to know right now, way before they're going to tell you that they've raised their prices. So you're already going to be like, they could have saved me money and you just raised my prices. Impact made. I'm out of here. Because that was, to me, like you said, that's the emotional point where I just needed to make that good impression to where they would want to call me and just be like, hey, you sent me this. Is this real? Because there's always a little nuance, right? As you said, one window, $300,000, but you're rarely ever just going to do one window. And so there's conversation to be had beyond just that entry level of awareness. But just getting to that point is the secret sauce that so many sales pros are missing because they're not systematically, as you said, creating multiple streams of opportunity to generate conversations. Yeah. And I do want to touch on the AI thing for a little bit because I'm a proponent of it. I think it's a great tool. I think it's also making people very, very lazy. And I think there's a lot of folks that are skipping the true aspect of sales and just trying to get this thing to do the sales for them. And so before I share my opinion with what you were saying, it sounds like you're a pretty big advocate for the AI. Where are you seeing it most effective with the guys that you're working with right now?
So I think that AI is, follow me for a minute because it's going to sound a little bit off in the beginning, but I think AI is overhyped. And I think it's overhyped because people don't qualify it and clarify it. So I'm brought in a lot of times and I speak at a lot of events, probably 2 to 3 a month, that I'm speaking at events to clarify AI because there's no clarity around what you're doing, why you're doing it, and setting the proper KPIs. KPIs are key point indicators, knowing that if I do this, this is the response that I'm looking for. I teach one thing that a lot of people don't get. It's ROI. Most people don't understand ROI because everyone right now is thinking, you're an idiot, Josh. No, you're thinking return on investment, and that's not true. It's the result of investment because you don't always get a return. What if you get $0 back? The key is not that you got $0 back. You didn't get a return, but what you did is get a result to see how do you modify it. And that ties into AI. It ties in because you're looking for the result, the KPI of the investment, and you have to know if it didn't work, doesn't mean that it's broken. Anyone can go out and run paid ads, Google AdWords, but not everyone can do it the right way. So that's part of that ROI. So when we talk about AI and we look for the clarity, let me cut through the smoke and move to the fire. There's so much can be said, but the first thing I would say is so many people are overspending without the right vision. So for me as a fractional chief marketing officer, people find me, I get probably 30% of my leads from being found on AI. But the reason is that business owners and salespeople do search and they dive in deeper and deeper. And then all of a sudden a fractional CMO pops up and people are like, what's that? I've never heard of this. Then they do the research, they find me, they call me. But when we look at other companies like insurance companies, they look at real estate people. You look at, construction, any type of construction, remodeling, and so forth. I think that people tend to not look at AI the right way, where they want to be found or they want to go pay for the new ads on ChatGPT. And I don't think that's really helpful. I don't think in many industries people are looking at it the right way. They're just throwing money at it because it's new and it's sexy. And I think that's where now AI in the next 4 to 5 years, I think there's going to be this huge divide of people happy and people upset. And I think when people, I'll end on this to tail it back over to you. I think you have to begin with the end in mind. So when you're looking at advertising with AI, that's one piece. Begin with the end in mind. And when you're looking to build AI for a sales funnel to assist you and vet those leads out, you nailed it. You can't be lazy. You have to put in the work, because AI is not going to tell you why they're not calling you back. AI is not going to tell you anything other than the metrics and what you ask it. And if you don't know the right questions to ask it, you're never going to get the right response to know how to adjust the result of your investment.
Friggin' man. If you can't fully reproduce the process over and over and over yourself, you'll never be able to properly train any AI, large language model, anything to properly handle the conversation. And where people are able to argue this right now is in those industries where they were not having any conversation to begin with. They never answered the phone. They never called the damn people back to begin with. So just having anything be there is like a massive improvement. But the truth is, once you start getting into a nuanced conversation and ask questions, too many of these models reset themselves. They get confused. They repeat questions, or they don't understand the full context of an explanation from someone. Yeah. They're used to very short, one-word, robotic-style answers, and when someone sends them a full-blown like wall of text of, here's my whole life story and why I need help, it is just going to absolutely blow that thing's metaphorical mind. And so it's still a long way off. I'm sure they're going to get better. I'm sure at some point, some of the low-level salespeople that are more like order takers are probably going to be out. And those of us who have a true capacity for genuine human connection, we're going to be the ones that are posed to really take market share, just based on the fact that, yeah, we understand how to utilize the AI as a tool, but we recognize that it's a tool and it still requires a human element to create the full relationship. And man, Josh, we could probably sit and nerd out on this forever.
Can I touch on two things real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing is you kind of mentioned this, and I just want to plead with people. When you're a salesperson, you're sending an email, keep it short. I can't even count how many emails I get from all of my companies and vendors and people trying to sell me on something. And when they're long, if they're more than like 3 sentences, 3 lines, I delete it. When they're short, I'm more apt to dive in. So as a buyer of many different things out there, I only pay attention to that. So that's one thing, right? The other thing is people buy from people they like. And AI is going to be something that should only be vetting people to help good salespeople take your sales to the next level, right? So I think those are two little nuggets, hopefully, that people will listen to and understand of. There's a right and a wrong way to do it. And just because other people are sending long emails doesn't mean you do it.
Well, it kind of comes from the old school copywriting game, right? All of us internet marketing world that were like, all right, we're watching Frank Kern and Ian Stanley and John Carlton and all the OGs that come from like, hey, we used to just print really long letters in the mail and mail things to people. And it was the length of the letter and the formatting that created the impact. To go back to what you said to the beginning of this whole show, is like the whole point is to create impact. And you're right, at this point, less is more does seem to be the trend that I'm noticing, and that obviously you're noticing in the marketing space. You know, the only people that want to be sold the long form stuff are the people that are like internet marketers selling to other internet marketers, because that's just the stuff that they love and nerd out on.
But think about what you just said, Drewbie, and we spoke before we started this podcast. Everyone's looking for that initial hook. So there's no way that anyone can convince me different than this statement. If internet, Instagram, Meta, Facebook, any video podcast, any YouTube, any TV show, they all focus on that hook. So in a letter, in an email, in that initial, why are we not trying to do the same thing as salespeople? Put that hook out there. And what does that hook need to be? 1 minute? In 1 minute, the average person speaks 550 words. So you're telling me that I want to read 550 words on an email? No. Hook me. Give me the 2 cents of what's going to make me go, maybe this person that just shot me an email has something that I need. If you get my interest, I'll shoot you back an email and be like, okay, you got me. Tell me more. But the bigger the fish, the more money that fish has, right? And whether it's like you're looking at the world like a Mark Cuban type, you know what I mean? That's not me. But if you're looking at a Mark Cuban type, bigger the fish, the lesser time he has. And the more he values his time. And as you step down from a Bezos and Cuban, and you kind of move down to other guys, you know what I mean, that are trying to make a purchase and they're stretching to make $100,000 purchase, you know, they're still human. They have a little more time probably because they're trying to figure things out. But that hook, man, like it just comes down to that in your sales process, right?
Yeah, the hook is so key, right? I think the statistic might be we have 8 seconds to get someone's attention. And so if you can say it in a minute, you can find a way to say it in 8 seconds. And then you get to expand on it once you've got their attention.
Yeah.
And again, we could sit here and nerd out all day because I love this conversation. And I know this is just the tip of the iceberg for what you can share and what we could really go deep on the rabbit hole of. But I do want to respect your time. How do we find you, follow you, check out more of this amazing content, and see what you have going on in the world?
Yeah. So my website is jrcmo.com. You can also just Google fractional CMO and then type in any major city in the US and you'll find me probably top 5 organically. So it's easy to find me. Joshua Ramsey Marketing. Don't get me confused with the Canadian punk rock singer. I have a little bit better hair than that guy. But Josh Ramsey Marketing, you can find me. And, you know, I have a free book that you can download, and I've got a lot of free information that I share on my website of marketing, hooks, socials, and then all my socials are out there as well that you can find.
I will 100% make sure the team puts all of that in the show notes so it's easy for everyone to find you. Really appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Listen, if you guys and gals enjoyed the show, go share it on social media. Whatever platform you prefer, doesn't matter to us. We just hang out on all of them. So go to the one you like, share this episode, tag me, tag Josh, let the world know that you got something out of this. Maybe you know somebody who just sucks at marketing. Maybe they suck at their follow-up. Maybe they need to hear this episode. Send it to them. You don't have to say those things. You don't have to tell them that they suck. But you can say, hey, I heard this episode. It made me think of you. I wanted to send it over your way. Give it a listen. And that's a pro tip for all of you that are trying to add value to any follow-up that you're doing. Share the stuff that helps other people. And then maybe you've got a story that will help other people, just like my man Josh. I'd love to have you on the show. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your details. Get signed up. While you're there, grab a hat, keychain, wristband, something. Support the show. Help us keep going. You know what to do. Go call the damn leads. We'll see you guys next time.
When the doubt gets loud, but answer that call. Vision ain't real till you grind that speed, so breathing deep. Then call the damn leads. Call the damn leads.